And here we are, back at Sharpens Man Laboratories. Me and Charlie. Just the two of us again, Charlie.
Yeah,
Deep thoughts. We can get deep now.
We're in the stewed. The
In
stewed.
the studio.
That's what someone else said that. The stewed.
Oh, they
That's a
shortened it?
Detroit term, I guess.
The
Someone
stew,
said the
huh?
stewed.
I'm
The
up in the
stewed.
stew, huh?
Yeah.
I'm not that trendy
Yeah,
yet.
I guess I learned some Detroit lingo. It's the stewed.
Detroit has some crazy lingo. People from Detroit have a whole different way of being. Like, they're angry as shit. They're busy. They're in a hurry. Like I said, I just went down there
They've
for
got
that
the
metal
Lions
concert.
to deal with.
Oh, my God, the Lions. You know why I hate the Lions, Charlie? This is just going to be quick football history for you, but it's because of Barry Sanders. I know you've heard the name Barry Sanders.
I thought you were going to say Barry Sanders.
Yeah,
I don't know
he's
why.
the best running
just
back
watching
of
highlights.
all time. I love him with all
he
my
was killing
heart.
it.
And they wasted him. They wasted him. Like, that's like being a priest with a big dick. Like, it's just a waste. It's like you're running around with a big old schnoz and you take a vow of celibacy.
When he was with them? Well, of course they did.
Yeah, he was with them, and they fucking wasted him. They never won shit. The best they ever did is they, like, made the playoff game in 91 or something. They sucked. And he was the best running back ever. And they just never would, like... And the reason they sucked is because they would never, like, give him a line. They would never give him a good offensive line.
Maybe they'll talk about Calvin Johnson that way, too.
They probably will.
He's probably one of the best wide receivers, maybe. I don't know that much about football.
Well, I don't anymore either. I've shied away from it since I hit the free world.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago, people were saying that he might be one of the best wide receivers ever on the worst team ever.
That's how life works out for some of them best players.
Well,
because
it's probably because they get
the
those
worst
first
team. Yeah, they get the first picks. Exactly. See, we both know a little bit about football. I used to be deep into it when I was in prison. I used to gamble my ass off in there on football shit.
I played football until I was a sophomore in high school.
And then I played a shit ton of football in prison. Did I ever tell you I played football in prison, Charlie?
Yeah.
I thought I did because I talk about it a bunch. It's one of my, I love doing stand-up. I'm super proud of that. But I would say second place is playing football in prison, which sucks. I don't get to have that conversation with many people because they're like, what the fuck? Like, you don't want to hear I've been in prison, you know what I mean? It's like, and they don't even, like, people that even know it, they don't really want to talk about it. It's like, I don't want to talk about it either. That's kind of the reason I do this fucking show. It gives me one little minute where I can be like, all right, I get to talk about prison.
Oh, yeah.
At least for a minute. But prison football, have you watched the new Longest Yard movie?
No.
It's nothing like that.
Haven't been into sports for a while.
Well, the movie is about, like, a NFL player that gets caught gambling and gets in trouble and gets sent to prison. And then in prison, he ends up on the, like, yard football team. But this prison actually has, like, a team with pads and helmets and shit. That's not how it was. It was just like we had a football. And we weren't allowed to play football. But the guards liked watching us fuck each other up so much, and they didn't give a shit that they would just let us play football. So we'd play football for years. I played from the time I went in there until about 6 years later, and then they really cracked down on that shit because people were they were barely getting hurt. Like, literally, it used to fucking piss me off is that so many people would get hurt playing basketball. Like, broken knees, ankles,
a bunch
all
of
kinds
leg injuries or jumping all the time.
Tons of injuries, but they had a basketball court every fucking where you looked in there. And then you fucking hit the free world and the fucking
technical difficulty.
I don't know what the fuck happened there, but we just got cut off, Charlie. It sucked.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Technical difficulties, but we weren't recording.
That was definitely some technical difficulties. I got to get my shit together. I don't know what just happened. This cheap-ass laptop I got. We need a sponsor.
Houston, we have a podcast.
Houston,
that
we
could
have
be
a
the name of this one.
Oh, you know, one of the first things I thought about, it's such a perverted thing, but when I was a little kid, I used to wonder if astronauts jacked off in space. Like, shortly after I started pudding off, I was like, man, I wonder if in the space station and shit, I wonder if they, why would, I'm sure they do. They have to.
Yeah.
I've heard that there's been, like, astronomical sex, astronaut sex. I don't know what the word for that would be, but astronauts have had sex in space.
Was it Neil and Buzz?
Yeah.
On the moon?
Neil and Buzz. That sounds better than Neil and Bob.
It's a lost footage of the moon landing.
They faked an orgasm on the moon.
Yeah, directed by Stanley Kubrick.
They didn't fake the moon landing, but one of them was faking it. The bottom was faking like he liked it. I don't know what the bottom and top is. I don't know enough about gay stuff to know what the bottom and top is. Like, I'll make jokes like I do. I pretend like I know, but I have no idea what bottom and top really means. Are they referring to like just sex, or is it like who does the dishes or what? Like, I don't know.
I think it is both.
It's
Bottom
all of it?
would be receiver, the catcher.
Ah.
Top would be the pitcher.
Ah. See, that's the
No,
terms I like to
I'm
think of
not.
it in. In the joint, it's funny you
I
say that. In
understand,
the
but
joint,
I'm
that's how
not.
they say it,
Yeah.
pitcher and catcher. And then they try to make it like if you're the pitcher, that's a little bit better.
Yeah, 'cause that would be the technically dominant.
Yeah,
I
that's
guess.
disgusting still. I mean, no, not if you're gay, but if you're just like selling out or whatever because you're in the joint, and you're like, okay, I'm not gay, but I'm just going to have sex with a dude. Like, I don't know what that is, Charlie.
Yeah, it's Roman. I heard that in another podcast. It's
The
called
Romans did used to bang each
It's
other.
called Getting Roman, yeah.
Getting Roman. When in Rome, do as the Romans, huh?
Yeah, that's from Theo Vaughn's podcast.
Is it?
Yeah,
I am never fucking Roman.
It's just, that was funny as fuck to me. Theo Vaughn, that's a funny podcast.
Is it? I
If you
haven't
want to check it
listened to
out.
him
Good
yet.
vocab. I just love listening to words. And Theo Vaughn and Duncan Trussell have a funny vocabulary.
I got to check out Theo Von then for sure.
Yeah.
I have not checked it. Actually, I have heard him on Duncan Trussell's once. I did like him with his appearance. It's weird how you'll hear a guest and it'll turn you on to a podcast. That's what's happened to me.
That's where I learned Going Roman. And it's true, yeah.
Going Roman. That's a terrible thing now. Is there any Romans left? Is that an ethnicity?
I don't
Are
know.
there still Romans? Wasn't that
Rome?
in Greece?
Rome.
I wonder if Greece people consider themselves Roman. The Grecians, or whatever they would say. Greasies. What do you call someone from Greece? A greasy motherfucker?
a
Even
Greek.
know. A Greek. That's the word I'm looking for, not a Grecian. Why would I even say Grecian? Is that a type of bread or something? Is that their
Grecian?
language?
I don't know.
I don't know. Sometimes I astound myself with how retarded I can become in just a moment like that. But I'm back on track now. Greece, where they like to do gay wrestling. They had a lot of weird gay shit in history. I've been, like samurais had a lot of gayness. They said they couldn't trust the woman because it was always like an arranged marriage, so they wouldn't trust their wife. So they'd like take a young boy and bang him because they could trust him.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Weird as fuck. Yeah.
And you wonder why history was so violent and fucked up. That's why everyone was getting molested when they were young. How would you feel if you got scooped up by a samurai when you were like 14 and he convinced you? I was watching Dr. Phil. I was watching Dr. Phil yesterday, and some mom like let her kid go off with like a record producer to Los Angeles when he was like 16 to be a gangster rapper. And then she was surprised that they had
probably.
Yeah,
that happened to someone in my school. No, that actually
yeah, that's weird that a parent would let that happen.
Yeah.
That's fucked up shit.
Michigan to Florida.
Damn. In search of fame because the parent was trying to live vicariously.
When you're 16 or 17.
That's crazy.
Someone you don't know.
No, you don't know that shit.
You've only talked to them over the phone. You don't really know them.
Yeah, you don't know nothing. Yep. Parents today are crazy with that shit, but kids are even crazier too. So it'd be hard.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not a parent, Charlie. You notice I'm not a parent? Like, I got kids, but I'm not a parent. That's my, I got like a clause in my contract. It's like, I'm your dad, but don't call me the parent or something. I don't know. I got adopted kids.
not technically.
Yeah, I adopted them late in life too because they had shitty dads. Which is, it's a shitty deal, you know? And I was adopted kid. My dad adopted me.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
He adopted me when I was born, basically. He got with my mom, and she was pregnant, and I was born, and then a little bastard came out, and he wanted me. Pretty cool. It was pretty cool. He sacrificed a lot. In a lot of ways, he was a dickhead dad. He definitely was a Donald Trump kind of dad, where he was grounding a motherfucker every weekend.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember a few jokes.
Yeah.
Pretty good ones.
He can be a savage. But at the same time, he gave up a lot to be a parent, you know. That's one thing I like. I like taking care of both my kids. I go snowblow Paige's driveway. You get a good feeling from helping people like that. You know one thing, and this is some true shit, listeners. You help yourself most when you help others.
Yeah.
You really fucking do. Like, you end up being of more benefit to yourself every single time that you're helping other people out. It's just strange how it works out like that. You can have instant karma in your life if you help people out.
Yeah.
It's very crazy.
I experienced it with getting Georgevich on that show.
Yeah. He did appreciate the hell out of it. And it was a good thing. I'm glad he was on it. It's nice when someone pushes for you early like that. It means a lot.
Yeah.
People have said kind shit to me early in my little comedy thing and just like any kind words. It's just like fucking, no matter who it's from. It doesn't have to be from like the owner of Comedy Central. It can just be from like a guy in the bar. If someone says something nice to you, it can be a lot of wind in your sail.
Oh yeah, just from a stranger if they just come up to you after your set. But it is also cool to. It's refreshing to have someone that you really like their comedy, and they're cool to hang out with. You know,
I would say both about him. When I seen his first set,
pretty awesome.
his very first set at Rotten Cherries, I was like, oh, okay, everyone up here is funny, but Georgievich has a style of comedy that I like, where I would like it, like from, you know what I mean? Like,
and it sucks that he's way up here, but we can support him as much as we can, at least, for him to be up here.
He needs to start his ass a podcast up there. He can be our brother podcast,
we were just saying that.
We can be at our web of 3.
He could be the Matt show.
3 is some kind of magic number.
It could be Matt Sharpens Matt.
Matt Sharpens Matt. That's not a bad idea. I think him and his wife would do a good podcast together because Caitlin's a funny-ass bitch.
She's apparently really fun. Well, she said, I forgot what it was. She said something
Those
really funny.
Those are her words, too. I didn't like those. That's what she would say about herself. That's why I said that. Caitlin would say that about herself, I feel like.
Yeah.
She'd
that's
be like,
what Matt
I'm
said
a funny
too.
bitch, yeah.
I think Matt said that he's almost funnier than her. It's funny, comics always have, or sometimes they'll have someone that they'll
that's
be like,
funny in their life.
That's funny in their life, and they're like,
my wife is pretty funny.
Than me.
She didn't, like, I would say she started out kind of funny, and I've made her funnier by, like, constantly berating her and making her deal with my bullshit. She's had to have a good sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe an asshole is
gotta have an
helped
understanding of it, yeah, to live, yeah.
Understand why your grown-ass husband still thinks it's funny to moon people and shit. She just has to get it, and she does. She don't care. She don't care if I take the clock off the wall and wear it around and pretend like I'm fucking Flavor Flav for the afternoon. Yeah. She doesn't care. She just knows that I just do it because I love to be Flavor Flav one day.
Yeah, Flav is gonna Flav.
Flavor Flav when I grow up. Oh,
that could be a shirt for you. Flav is gonna Flav.
The Flav is in the house.
Flavor.
Before we started the fucking intermission where the thing messed up, I was telling you about prison football, Charlie. I just remembered that.
Yeah.
I was going to finish telling you that.
I have a pretty bad injury story.
I want to tell you a funny injury prison story. This is one of the things that started the decline of us being allowed to play football.
Okay.
We always would go play football all week long. We had little teams set up, and we'd have matches, and it was no pads, full tackle, try to fuck each other up football. And, I mean, we were playing hard. And one thing that's nice is when you don't wear helmets, it's like an agreed-on thing. There was barely any head-to-head.
Yeah.
Because who wants to bash your head into someone else's head? Yeah, once in a while they'd click and it'd be funny. But there was this kid named Bradshaw who was like a puny little kid, and we all like looked out for him because we didn't want people raping him and beating him up. So, you know, we hung out with him. You know, and he hung out in like the big honky network or whatever. There was a bunch of big white guys that kept him safe, you know. But I mean, it wasn't like a race thing, but there wasn't any big black guys that were going to look out for him, that's for sure. So he hung out with these guys, and he would always play football with us. And, you know, football was very mixed. We all played blacks and whites. It was a nonpartisan game. It was fun, you know, and no one cared about shit. No, we never played like that. If they seen a game line up like that, they'd shut the yard down. They'd think a riot was starting. Yeah. You know what's funny in there?
Security.
This is some real shit. This is real good advice. If you're in jail or prison and you walk out to the day room and everyone has tennis shoes on, you fucking go get your tennis shoes on too. That's just how it is, because it means something's about to pop off. Like normally people are shuffling around in like slippers and shower shoes and but if you look around and everyone's got their fucking Nikes on.
I think if you walk into any room and everyone has a bunch of shoes on and you have socks on, you're maybe the weak.
You're the weakest link. Yeah, exactly.
You could freeze your toes.
Yeah, but I think that must be good advice in all situations. Is wear shoes that are similar to what you're going to be doing. Don't wear the wrong shoes, people. But this dude Bradshaw, man, he fucking always would play Charlie, but he was a pussy and he wouldn't actually play. So he would run, and if you threw the ball to him, even if he was open, he wouldn't really catch it because he was afraid that he'd get tackled. He'd only catch it if he knew he could run out of bounds and somebody wouldn't tackle him late. And, like, he just barely played. He wouldn't block. He wouldn't do shit. He was scared to make contact because he was kind of little, and, like, people wouldn't have fucked him over.
There's people in football like that where they're just small.
Yeah, they're scared to cross the line and do it. Yeah, it's like, well, you're going to get – you suck. I don't know why you're here. It's almost like stand-up comedy where once in a while when you see someone and they're terrible, you just want to be like, oh, my God. You shouldn't be here. But it's the same as football. They shouldn't be
Yeah.
playing, but they wanted to wear the pads and shit, so let them
I'd
do it.
rather
Who
just be
cares?
silent about it, like
Y-
we were saying.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's better.
Just be silent, let him play. Well, that's what we did with Bradshaw. We let him in the game all the time. Well, we finally, because we were fucking kind of jerks, we were like, okay, we need to get him. We need to get him for once. So today, when he plays, we're gonna fucking. We had this planned out. We're gonna throw him the ball, and we talked about it with the other team. Like everyone knew about it except for Bradshaw. The guy covering him's gonna leave him wide open. I'm gonna float him the ball. Once he gets it, he's going to just get peeled. We're going to tackle him. Like, he's going to finally get tackled because he's been playing with us for like 6-7 months now, and he's never been tackled. And, like, it's starting to be kind of noticeable where it's like, this dude has never been tackled because he's scary. So let's, like, break his fear of being tackled by floating him a pass, and then we'll just kind of, like, give him a loving dog pile is what we thought, right? So we floated him this pass. He catches it. He's terrified like a deer in the headlights because he sees everyone's bearing down on him, and we just mangle him and tackle him. Well, this guy, he wasn't afraid to say fuck or shit or anything. He always swore. He was a regular convict, you know. Well, all of a sudden, he fucking, he's on the ground and he's yelling, God, gee, golly, darn it, dang it. And he's like sounding like weird, like he's not swearing. And he's going off, though. He's kind of screaming a little bit while we undogpiling him, and his leg is pointing the wrong direction. We fucking totally broke his leg, and it's pointing the wrong direction now.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was terrible. So we felt like assholes, and that's they came in, they put like one of them air braces on his leg and carried him off the yard on the stretcher, and it was the beginning of the end of football for us. And it was our own creation.
Something like that would happen, yeah.
Like, they really got uptight about it. That's what I was saying. They said, oh, there's injuries in football, and we're going to take it away. And it's like, yeah, but there's way more injuries in basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not
Just
compound
the absence
fractures,
of
but
pads, probably.
yeah,
Just looks more dangerous.
it did look dangerous.
Someone bit out part of their tongue when I was in like 5th grade playing football in
getting
recess.
hit in the chin.
Yep. I jumped for the ball, and he was behind me, and he jumped for it, and my head hit his chin, and he bit a piece of his tongue out of his mouth. Pretty crazy. I didn't know that was possible.
I could not lose part of my tongue. That would be detrimental to my game, Charlie. I have got to have the tongue. The tongue game is strong in this one, Charlie.
Yeah.
I couldn't live without it. The women, I sound like some
Probably
guy.
not noticeable. Well, there's probably a small.
Every woman I've ever been with wouldn't quite remember me as fondly if this tongue was bitten off, I'm sure.
It wasn't a large piece.
No.
It was like an indent. Almost
that's
like
not
a golf.
too bad.
Like
That's not too bad.
When you go play golf and you hit the grass off a little bit, it's like
I put my lower teeth through my bottom lip right here when I got hit in the face. We were both running for an interception not an interception, but a tip
that's
ball.
way worse.
It was like floating through the air. Me and another guy were just booking towards it, not looking at each other, and whap, ran right into each other. And my teeth poked through a little bit. It hurt like a bitch. That was the only time that I actually remember getting knocked out in prison. Like, I didn't remember I knew I had gotten knocked out, essentially. One other time, I only got knocked out twice. And the other time I got knocked out, they gave me the nickname Lawn Chair. And I didn't even think I had gotten knocked out. But, like, I got in a fight with this big dude. Well, I got in a fight. He was picking on me and shoving me around, so I, like, punched him, and he started fighting with me. And he hit me. And, like, I just thought he knocked me down, and I got back up. And then, like, the fight got broken up. But that's not what happened. He hit me, and I got knocked out, and I was down for quite a while, and I got up and tried to fight the wrong person, is what everyone told me, and then they helped me to my room. Because he had, like, knocked me out
I remember
and left.
hearing that.
Yeah, he just, like, he knocked
And
me
you
out.
accidentally told someone that was your nickname.
Yeah, I told the girl that. I was like, she's like, so did you have any nicknames in prison? And I was trying to sound all tough, and I was just like, I didn't even think about it. I just, like, thought of my nickname that I had for a long time at the first joint I went to, and I was like, oh, yeah, they used to call me Lawn Chair. And I was just like, oh, shit. As soon as I said it, I'm thinking she's going to ask why, and she did. And I'm like, God damn it. I didn't want to tell her the getting beat up story, so I just told her that they thought I was chill like a lawn chair, something corny as fuck. And she definitely didn't like me as much. I'm chill like a lawn chair, baby. But yeah, they said that I just like fell straight forward and folded in half like one of them like easy lawn chairs, and of course, there's some smart-ass dude in the back. Oh, look at that motherfucker lawn chair folded up like a lawn chair. And all of a sudden, that was stuck. I'm a lawn chair.
Do they
kind of
treat
player.
you for concussions there? Like if you were to get one in football, or do they just
No, they don't give a
like if
shit.
you?
I mean, you would
They
have to
wouldn't even
tell
be
them.
like you.
It
Yeah.
wouldn't matter. You'd have to tell them, and that's
If you
like,
have a concussion, you're just gonna have a
you see
concussion
this
for set.
scar on my lip right here? That was another nickname I ended up with, was clit lip, because I
Huh.
got this big scar on my lip because I got the shit punched out of me in the kitchen one time. I went to, this is some dumb shit too. I went to work, Danny Durbeck was his actual name. I went to the work a little bit late because it was hard for me to wake up. I was a young kid. You know, when you're a teenager, it's hard to wake up on time. Well, anyhow, I was getting tickets for being late to work at the kitchen. Well, this day I was almost late again, and I didn't want to be late, so I just like grabbed my toothpaste and my fucking toothbrush and my washcloth, and I put my kitchen whites on because they had like this white jumpsuit, and I just threw that shit over my clothes like you were supposed to anyhow, and I went to work. Well, when I got there, I went in the little employee bathroom, and I brushed my teeth and everything, and well, this Danny guy seen me doing it, and when I came out, he was acting all shitty. He's like, this nasty motherfucker, he's fucking brushing his teeth in the kitchen, he's a gross motherfucker, and he's like talking shit to me because I had like brushed my teeth at work or something, and I'm like, whatever, man. I was like trying to blow it off. Well, then I was tired and cranky, and I said the wrong shit. But I told him, I said, why don't you suck my dick? And like in prison, that's not something you tell people. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have said it. So it was my bad in a way. Like I should have just put up with his blazing a little more, blazed him back or something. But I started the fight in a way by even saying that. But he's like, hey, let's take this to the cooler, man. So we're going to go in the cooler and fight. They have these big walk-in coolers, and it was like known that's where you go to fight. You know, it was I'd seen many fights happen before this one. I hadn't been in a fight yet in the kitchen, so I knew how it worked. You agreed to fight. You both went to the cooler. Like, you were peaceful until you got there, so you didn't run there or something and make a big scene. Like, you went there, closed the door, and then you fought in the cooler so you didn't get caught and get put in the hole. I knew that was the process. So we're walking to the coolers, and as he goes to, like, I thought he was reaching to open the door, he, like, did a spin and punched me right in the fucking mouth and then took off. So he just, like, sucker punched me, in essence, on the way to the fighting place. And then, as soon as he hit me, blood went everywhere. I could see blood flying because he split my lip wide open. Like, it was wide open, it looked horrible, like a lizard tongue.
It's like a boxer sucker punching someone at the weigh-ins and
Exactly.
then not fighting the fight.
Exactly what it was like, too. That's a good analogy. So this motherfucker takes off, and I'm like, God damn it. And I'm glad he did because I couldn't have fought him anyhow. Blood's pouring all over. So I go in the bathroom. The thing is terrible. I'm like, oh, shit, man, what am I going to do? I don't want to go to the hole, so I can't tell him I've been fighting. So I go and I put a bunch of cold water on it, and I kind of get it to stop bleeding. And I go to the food steward, and I'm like holding my hand over my mouth, and I tell him, I said, man, I feel like I'm going to throw up. You got to let me go home for the day. By home, back to my cell. And he's like, yeah, okay, you can go home for the day. So I have to go back in the bathroom, clean up again, because by now it's bleeding like a fucker again. Put a bunch of cold water on it, get it to stop again, and then I run to the guard that's got to, like, search me before I leave the kitchen. And I put my hand over my mouth and feed him the same shit where I was like, oh, I feel like I'm going to puke. So he's like, all right, let me hurry and shake you down. And he pats me down and lets me leave the kitchen. And I get back to the unit. By now, I'm bleeding like a fucker because it's a long walk. So I just am hiding the fact that I'm bleeding as I walk past the guards. And I go down to my cell, and I go in there for like 2 seconds. And then I come right out, and I go down to the guards. And I'm like, oh, man, I was getting in my bunk. And I slipped, and I hit my face on the metal bar. And they're like, all right. And they took me to the doctor to get stitches. But it's hard to, like, come up with a lie like that for, like, if you're fighting or if you get a concussion. You don't want, because normally they'll put you in the hole. Like, if they had caught me at any time before I was able to come up with that lie, if they'd have caught me with that ripped lip, they'd have put me in the hole because they'd have known I was in a fight.
Yeah.
You see, that's how they work it. If they can tell you've been in a fight, they lock you up and try to get you to tell on someone. And then when you don't, they keep you locked up or transfer you. It's a terrible thing, Charlie. So going to the doctor in there is a pain in the ass.
When I was in band and as a sophomore, after one of our football games that we marched in, we went to a grocery store in Elk Rapids, a couple of my friends and I, and we were just walking down this aisle, and for some reason we had a lot of energy. We were sober. It was before we were doing anything. And we went into
Youthful exuberance.
Yeah. And we went into the cereal aisle, and I said something like cowabunga, or like kamehameha, or something like that. And then I tried to headbutt cereal, like a box of cereal, just, I don't know why. And I headbutted the cereal, but then I put my head down too far, and I headbutted the metal part too, and I split open my eyebrow. And
And you felt
grocery
like an
store.
asshole, didn't
Yeah,
you?
and then I
When
almost
Dragon
passed
Ball
out.
and testosterone
Yeah,
mix.
and then I almost passed out. Well, it was trumpet. That's what really got us going. Was band.
That damn trumpet gets you
Band
amped
is
up.
it's like skydiving. It's an adrenaline rush.
Well, it's also
but-
a big group activity
Yeah.
where you're making
There's a lot
noise
of-
as a unit,
yeah.
which you can
Yeah.
feed off. It's like doing
All jokes
comedy.
aside, there is a lot of energy.
Yeah,
that goes
because you're
into a
feeding
lot
off
of
that group energy,
Yeah,
just like you feed
to
off the audience on
30 or
stage.
40 people that all know each other pretty well to play in a band. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So there is some energy, and especially when you're that young. But I almost passed out in the grocery store bathroom trying to clean it off, and I thought I was gonna have to get stitches, but I didn't. And then we had a dance the next day, so I had to wear a Band-Aid on my eyebrow.
And make up a story, so you didn't want to tell people that you were just
No, I
fucking
told people.
headbutted the
No, I
aisle.
told people because I was a dumbass like that, a jackass,
I've never
class clown at that point, I guess.
Yep, I've always told people if I fuck myself up doing something stupid, I'll tell people about it. I've never
Yeah,
been
I told
shy.
everyone. Everyone knew about it, and it was yeah. Even though that happened, I still felt like a badass and acted like a badass just because it was funny to act like a badass after doing something like that.
I got this weird scar on my fingers here. See that big X? I got that on my hand because I was lying underneath of a car, shaking up a glass bottle of pop for no good fucking reason. And because I was under a car when I was shaking it, it like hit the metal frame real quick on accident. It like clicked it, and the pop bottle exploded in my hand and cut the piss out of me. Like that is stupid as shit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep, I've always told people about it though. I'm not ashamed.
In 5th grade, my friend and I wanted to make a movie about, or just riffing on injuries, but in 5th grade, my friend and I wanted to make a movie about gummy bears for some reason. I think because we had a bag of gummy bears. That's honestly why we wanted to
Well,
make.
it would be good for still. You could make some like little
Yeah,
animations
you can move
with
them
make
and
them
stuff.
trot
So we were
along and
writing a
shit.
script as well as 5th graders could, and then for some reason we were hanging out, and I put a gummy bear in the microwave and microwaved it for like a minute, and then I tried to pick it up, and I didn't realize it. I didn't realize that it
The gummy bear was
melts.
hot as shit, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
so it was not only hot as shit, but it'll stick on as well, so it's hard to get off. And I remember like just screaming, and he was laughing really hard.
It's funny.
Good old friend that'll.
We could probably go through injuries all day. You keep making
Yeah.
me think of my injuries. A fucker whipped a lighter at me one time when I was probably about the same age you're talking about. How old were you when you did the gummy bear thing?
5th grade, so.
Oh, I was a little bit
know.
older because we were like 9th or 10th grade, just started high school age and trying to be cool and drink and shit like that. And we were hanging out and drinking. And one of my fucking stupid friends took his lighter and took the metal part off of it and like lit it on fire so the plastic was burning. And they were playing like hot potato, throwing it to each other like they thought it was going to burn through the plastic and explode pretty soon, which it was going to do. And then like I was catching it and playing with them a little bit, but then I was like, ah, fuck this, and I threw it, and I was like, hey, I'm going to go get something. I don't know. I was out of the game, and I turned around, and one of them being a real fucking sweet fella, nice, whipped it at me, and it fucking stuck right to my ear and was burning, and I was terrified that it was going to explode in my ear, and I finally slapped it off the side of my head, and it didn't explode in my ear, thank God. It did explode.
Yeah.
But I had all that melted plastic stuck to my ear. Like, he could have fucked me up for life.
That's fucked up.
Hell yeah, it is.
But
See what
when
I
my
said about
friend-
the 90s being bully era?
Yeah.
It was.
When my friend laughed about it, I would rather have him laugh about it because, he knew it wasn't serious. Even as a 5th grader, he knew it wasn't serious.
Right. It's just on your hand. It's
Yeah,
not
just on my
serious.
finger, yeah.
This
And
was
he
them
saw me
being malice and trying to
Yeah,
throw
he wasn't.
something
I did
at
it
me.
to myself, totally. So that'll happen though. And
Yeah, that's how
movie making is dangerous.
Yeah, movie making is, especially if you have to do all your own stunts.
Yeah. Well, we were using like what we had basically, which was like cars and shit. We had a small town going, but we didn't really do anything with it. 'Cause when you're in 5th grade, it's
Yeah, what are you
not gonna
supposed
be able
to
to
do?
get that shit done. Yeah. We tried. Well,
Trying is important. Trying is
Yeah.
important. We had a little brief interlude.
good
We
to-
have a new audience member. Thank goodness. Welcome to the audience, my daughter. My kid.
hello.
It's always weird for a second when people first walk in. Charlie, don't worry, you'll
Yeah.
break in. Don't worry, you're
Yeah,
all
we have
used
a-
to- Don't worry, she won't
We're
kill you
used
for.
to-
You
we're
won't
used
say
to
anything
audiences.
wrong. You can't say anything wrong, Charlie. You can tell me what you've been up to, Charlie. What have you been up to? You got a big show coming up. Are you excited? Who is on this show? Steve Iott. What is he? Is he the name comic? Is that the main guy?
Yes, he is.
What's he known for? Tell me his thing.
I believe he's been on the Bill Maher show, and I saw a big list of shows he was on. I honestly don't know all of them, but
Is
Yeah.
he? How old is he? I didn't even see his picture.
looks about middle age, 30, 40, something like that.
Is he a white guy?
Yes.
I didn't know if he was
Yeah.
Asian or what he was.
Yep, he's gonna be
Who else is on there with you
the feature,
guys?
and then we're opening for him. Ben, Max, Gary Langley, and I are gonna be opening for him. So I'm excited about that one. That's gonna be awesome.
We need to get Ben Max on this podcast next.
Yeah,
that'd
he's
be a good guest. Ben Max.
Yeah.
Like he
Him
does a
and
lot
Matt.
of stuff as Thad Ranger, which is funny as shit to me. But I want to have him on here as Ben Max because
Yeah.
he's had some interesting shit in his life. He did like a stint as a wrestler.
Yeah. He's done
some-
theater all his life too. He
Yeah,
did
he's
theater
done
in
some
college.
interesting shit in his life. That's for sure.
Yep.
He definitely. Is someone,
And we were just talking about how much him and Matt helped us.
Hell yeah.
Not
Both
so-
of them are the two I feel like I got to have on here soon. But they're also the two that's hardest to line up because Matt's like pretty much like super important at his job where he's
Yeah.
like working 24 hours a day. And I'm
Still
Ben's
doing
not far
comedy.
away from that. Then he's got
Yeah.
the comedy shit on top of it.
Yeah, but they got me on the road, and that's really helped more than anything.
Busted your cherry
on
and,
my
showed you it
first-
wasn't the worst thing.
Yeah, and on my first paid. Well, I knew it was. I was excited for it. I knew it
I'd say
wasn't
that
the
that's
worst thing.
exactly what they did for me too, because the first time I went traveling to do some comedy
wasn't-
was with them essentially. Like I had traveled before, but it was a bust because I had tried
Yeah.
to book a show and I got the wrong thing and went to fucking night at the Improv bullshit.
Yeah,
Just-
and when you're that new, only doing it locally, it's not that you're afraid of it. You just don't know what to do. You don't
Exactly.
really know where to go. Like,
you don't
what's
understand
gonna
how
be
the
worth
system
try-
works.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's
I
kind of cool how
definitely
that. It's kind of cool how that works. So
It is nice.
there's no way to learn it other than just other than just doing it.
Yep. Got to get out there and do it. That's why it's a waste of money sometimes. I'm getting paid $20 to drive away 50, but fuck it, you got to go do it, man.
Yep.
It's all good. It is all good.
Yeah.
Charlie, you got an old joke for us this week?
Oh, yeah, I do actually.
What? You got one? All right, I'm going to tell one while you think of yours because I'm going to tell
Forgot
you
what
a
it
quick one.
is, but
There's this fucking logging camp, Charlie. And this guy, he goes and joins the logging camp. And he's going to make big money working up in the woods in Canada. Well, he finds out real quick that there's no women around. They make good money, but there's no women in the whole area. So he goes to one of the other loggers and he says, hey, man, you made me think of this when you were talking about being Roman. He says, hey, man, what do you guys do in the logging camp, man? There's no women around here. He says, well, there's a big old pickle barrel up on the hill. He's like, it looks like an old whiskey barrel, but it's an old pickle barrel. He says, there's a knot hole in it. He says, all of us just go put it in that old knot hole. And the guy says, really? He says, yeah. He's like, it works. And he says, well, I don't know about that. Well, after about a week of just having himself, he's like, well, you know what? No one's up at the barrel. Everyone else I've been seeing go up there, they must like it and enjoy it, so I'm going to go give it a shot. So he goes and he tries the knot hole in the barrel, and he's like, God damn, he gets done. He's like, that is amazing. That's way more lifelike than I thought it would be for a knot hole. He's like, that is really great. So he starts using it, pretty frequently, and he goes for a whole week. And after about a week of doing it, he sees his friend that told him about the barrel to begin with. He says, man, I cannot thank you enough for telling me about that barrel. He's like, it's been awesome. He's like, I didn't think it would be, but I really enjoy it. He's like, well, I'm glad you do. He's like, because now that you started using it, you're in the rotation, and you got to go in the barrel next Saturday. So there's a logger in the barrel. That's the joke.
Oh.
You see, it
Not
took
funny
a
when you don't
didn't
get it.
register for a second.
Yeah.
He's like, wait a second, it doesn't register. There's a logger.
I was trying to memorize my joke. That I was.
That's all right.
say.
Now tell it to me.
It's a Rodney Dangerfield joke. So
Get ready.
he
for
says,
this.
he says, my ex-wife signed me up for bridge club. I jumped off last Tuesday. He jumped
That is
off
a great.
of
That's a great joke.
I laughed really hard at it.
That
when he
is a
said
great
it.
joke.
I tried to say it like him.
You need to have your robe on with your dick hanging out if you're gonna say it like Rodney Dangerfield. I heard that he was like the fucking Harvey Weinstein of comedy for a while. That he just shuffle
Really?
around in a robe with his fucking junk flopping around.
I have heard that too.
Yeah. Who cares? He was fucking 100 years old. He deserved it.
It's funny.
He was funny.
Very
too.
funny.
He was a funny dude. I love all of his shit. I'd say he's definitely one of my motivators in life to be. My biggest one was always Eddie Murphy, though. I seen that fucking Eddie Murphy Raw when I was a kid, and that shit was so funny. He made fun of being poor. Like, he was talking about dropping his ice cream on the ground and still eating it, and not having a real burger, and instead of not having hamburger buns, he was eating his shit with bread, and it was like the other kids were teasing him. So when he like would talk about shit like that, that's what made me like comedy, because I was like, oh, he's making light of my situation and making it where it's fun. Because I was as poor as he was talking about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was the first time I heard some comedy, and it made me feel better about like myself. And I went, "Oh, this is what this shit's for." But I was like way too young to be watching him. He was swearing up a storm up there. I don't know if you've ever seen that old special.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a good one. So when are we gonna start going to the gym, Charlie? We got to give these listeners what I've been promising. I got to start taking you to the gym and get you buffed up.
You should play racquetball.
I want to put you on the inmate workout program. I'm going to start a fucking workout program called the inmate workout program. You're going to be the first motherfucker to be on it. And if we show results with you, then we can sell the inmate workout program.
That's never sounded like a good program.
Going to teach you. You got to eat like ramen noodles and shit. That's going to be your diet. No protein powders, nothing like that. Oh, you do like peaches and cream. Have you ever seen Ed, Edd and Eddy, that old cartoon?
Yeah, that's yeah.
Remember the kid that lived next door that loved peaches and cream? What was his name? The little weird kid, the gayish one? I always thought it was funny there was a gay kid on a cartoon. Remember the gay kid that hung out with, like, their sister, Ed's sister?
No, I don't know if I ever...
Jimmy was his name. His name was Jimmy. You didn't watch enough Ed, Edd and Eddy. I'm going to have to make you watch some shit on TV, Charlie.
No, I definitely watched a lot of Ed, Edd and Eddy. It was just when I was really, really young.
Oh. I watched it when I was too old to be watching it. That's probably why I remember
I don't think
better.
I think I was so young when I was watching it. I might have not even caught on.
I was at a friend's house one time, and he was showing me a remodel that he did. And he's like an older guy. He's a contractor. He's very responsible, blase-splee. So I'm like, and I mean, not that I'm not, but I'm just kind of a different breed of person. So I'm fucking over at his house one day, and he's showing me all this shit that he remodeled his basement. And he has his grandkids over there, and they're watching Ed, Edd and Eddy. And, like, he catches me, like, watching out of the corner of my eye, and he's like, do you know what this is even? He's like, what? He's like, why would you even look at a cartoon? And I was like, basically, and I was like, yeah, it's Ed, Edd and Eddy. He's like, what? You know what it's called? And I was like, shit. And I told him what they were about to say, word for word almost, because I had seen the episode like 3 or 4 times. Like, not only do I know what it is, I know what their scam they're running right now is. I know the jawbreaker that they're going to get. I know all this shit about this episode.
Yeah, that was a really good show. Flapjack was a really good show. We were talking about that the other day.
Was great. See, to me, cartoons don't have any kind of, like, presumptions. They're fake. Just like TV shows are fake, but they try to, like, convince you that they're real, you know? A cartoon doesn't try to convince you it's real. Teen Mom is real, though. And so's Dr. Phil. That's why I watch that kind of shit sometimes and get all enthralled in it more than I should. Because it is real. Have you ever watched some Teen Mom?
With you guys,
Just that little bit you've seen with me? Oh, it's engrossing when you start watching it more. You develop a favorite Teen Mom, a least favorite one. They're like baseball players almost. Like, I wish they had Teen Mom cards. It wouldn't be that many in a pack, but you could play, like, games with them. People would abuse them, though. That's why.
Yeah, there could be a board game for it.
I was such a bastard. I remember when Teen Mom first was a TV show. I was like, if it's not a show about her getting pregnant, I don't want to watch it. Like, it's got to be while she's getting pregnant.
It wasn't that good to me, but it seems like if
it's
maybe if anyone kept watching,
yeah, that's you get a vested interest in it. Yeah. Like, one thing that's good about it is, like, you can't believe people act like this. Like, the one thing that I liked, I watch shit from a different angle. So when I'm watching Teen Mom, I'm not, like, watching Teen Mom. I'm watching it with a different cut. And I'm, like, looking at the angles. I'm like, okay, how has MTV fucked up these people's lives? What is having MTV injected into your life at the age of 16 and having these people up your ass, not only up your ass, but also giving you money. Not only that, they also instigate conversations. What if I put you in a fucking room with your dad and was like, have a conversation with him about the time that you stole his money or some shit awkward. You know what I mean? Like, you would hate to have that conversation, but that's what MTV does to the teen moms. MTV will take the teen mom and say, hey, your boyfriend's on his way over. You told us that you're upset that he hasn't been over here very much lately. Why don't you ask him why he hasn't been over here and have a conversation with him about that? So they, like, stage the conversation in a way, because I've seen episodes where I've caught on to that.
Yeah, you got to look at it. I look at every TV show like that, even if it's classified as reality, because it's always still going to be entertainment.
Exactly. It's a totally different angle, though. So I'm not, like, watching it for the teen mom aspect. I'm watching it for, just for the weird angle. And there's some weird shit. Like, I'm telling you, them people's lives have been thrown askew.
Yeah.
Some of them by having money. Some of them have taken it and used it right.
And it's kind of an enabling bad behavior.
Oh, some of them it was. There's a bunch of them that turned into drug addicts that wouldn't have been. They just wouldn't have been. They wouldn't have had the financial means to get as far off into the shit that they were into it, or the free time. They would have had to work jobs and shit. Yeah. But then there's also other ones. Like, there's a couple from Michigan that use their money to start, like, a line of baby clothes, and, like, they're fucking good people. You can tell they're just, like, a couple cool people. And, like, they almost portray them as the worst ones because they smoke a little bit of weed. But they're from Michigan. It's a rite of passage in Michigan. It's like, come on, MTV, get off our ass for smoking weed.
Huh, interesting.
I seen, you know what, speaking of weed and fucking reality shows, yesterday on Dr. Phil, this dude came out and said that he smoked weed one time, and he's been having anxiety and panic attacks for, like, the last 4 years because of that. I wanted to go through the TV and beat the shit out of him. And then they showed the list of medication that this guy's been on since he started his so-called anxiety attacks. It's every craziest fucking pill you can imagine. Where if you ate one, you would be so faded.
And it's got to be the placebo, too, of smoking it.
Yeah.
He was probably smoking it maybe without knowing it somehow. Maybe he got handed something and he didn't know what it was. Yeah. That sounds really...
It sounds way overboard.
Misinformed or something. Someone that hasn't...
Way overboard.
Because you can get an idea in your head and then...
Yeah, people tell you stuff.
But
then what made me mad is
the reality in your head.
Fucking, like, was feeding off into the weed part of it instead of focusing on the part the guy's got 30 different prescriptions he's ran through.
Yep.
Be Happy, Zoloft.
Seems to be a problem.
Yeah, it is. It's a weird problem. They try to pill people to death in America. They do, with 30 different, especially when they start changing them. Like, if you go to a doctor for a while, like, I'm not telling people stop taking the shit, but if you go to a doctor for a while and he puts you on something, that's one thing. But this guy had been on 15 different things. So every 2 or 3 months, he was getting a script to something different. And just that change period, going through the withdrawals of the one thing. They had my wife on this weird shit a while back because she has hot flashes. And she thought the medication was just for hot flashes, and she started taking it with doing no research, which is, I mean, I can't lie. I'd probably have done the same thing. Well, it turned out it was some kind of, like, mood pill called Effexor. And after she realized it, she took it for a little while. She was like, this shit's kind of messing with me. She looked it up on the internet, and she's like, oh, that's why it gives me a weird little buzzy feeling. It's a mood elevator or mood lifter or mood stabilizer or some shit like that.
Yeah.
So she had taken it for a while, and she's like, it does help my hot flashes some, so she kept taking it. Well, eventually it quit helping her hot flashes, and her hot flashes were getting worse, okay? Well, she decided to quit taking the shit because it wasn't helping, and she just didn't care about it. So she quit taking it. Well, for 4 days, she was laid up in the bed. She said she was having zaps in her brain. Yeah. Have you ever heard of a brain zap?
Yeah.
I had never heard of that shit. She said she was having zaps inside of her brain. I looked up the withdrawal symptoms for the drug that she's on. It said brain zaps. I had to look it up what it was. It said that it's like a zip inside your brain that you can kind of hear. I'm like, that's fucking crazy. I don't want to feel electricity in my brain from nothing. Yeah, that's fucking crazy. Some of that shit they have on the market, and then they're so heinous on the weed. That's the only problem I have is that they're so down on the weed. They act like it's terrible.
I did Xanax once. It was horrible.
Ooh, that stuff's strong.
Don't do Xanax, yeah. And don't snort
stuff is I snorted a Klonopin in prison one time. It was actually a fucking stupid-ass thing, too. I fucking... It was like my 20th birthday or 19th birthday or something. I was still pretty young. I think it was my 19th birthday. And my bunkie's like, hey, you want to party? It's your birthday and shit. And I'm like, all right. So he's like, you want to snort this Klonopin? I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And he's like, come on, it's fine. I do it. And he did it. And I was like, well, he's not like tweaking out or burning on the floor. And I gave it like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And I seen that he was just like chilling. I was like, all right, fucking, like a dumbass, I did it. Literally for 3 days, I felt retarded. Like
What is that again? Is that a painkiller?
Klonopin. It's some kind of downer, I think,
Downer?
or something.
Yeah.
I don't know
I've heard
exactly
of it
what
before.
it is. There's very limited stuff they give people in prison. They don't give them, like, you can go and try to get medication, but the most kind of medication that they give you is stuff like that makes you sleep a bunch or something. But I didn't want nothing. I didn't know what it was. I just thought, oh, this guy tells me it'll give me a good buzz. Let me try it.
That's how I felt too.
Oh, it was a bad idea.
Hollowed brain.
Yep, couldn't
and then
think.
you pass out, and it feels like you've slept 5 minutes, but 3 hours go by.
Yep.
I was in the car going to Grand Rapids for 3 hours, and it felt like probably half an hour because I couldn't keep awake.
Yep, that's how it is. It just hits you. It just is terrible in a way.
Yeah.
You can't get it out of your head almost.
Yeah, I would never do that again.
Yep, no fun. It's no fun. Drugs is no fun. But then they hate on weed. They constantly hate on weed.
It's weird.
It's a weird world we live in. I love me some weed.
It is weird.
If they legalized weed, people would visit their grandmas more.
I
You know
think-
when harvest season and you get all them squashes and tomatoes and shit from your grandma? You don't want that bullshit. You want some weed.
Yeah.
And Granny would grow it for you if it was legal.
You'd have weed pie for Thanksgiving.
For the holidays. Oh, is you religious holiday, man, Charlie? Christmas is coming up. Do your parents celebrate? You celebrate?
Kinda.
Kinda.
We're not that religious, but yeah.
Do they put a tree up still?
No. I
Aw.
don't have one up either. I might.
Did they do it when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You should just
I might
go
get
buy
a
a
branch
small
or
tree that your
something.
cat would like and just let it climb it.
That's what I was thinking. But I don't need to do that because we live out in the woods. I'll just get a branch or something.
Yeah, just go whack a branch off a pine tree and take it in and let your cat tear it up for a minute.
Yeah, that's actually a good
Merry Christmas,
it's a good
cat.
way to do it.
Are you going to get your cat
That's
something
what we
for
did
Christmas?
next year. That's what I
You can shop
just
cheap
thought
for
of
your
that
cat.
yesterday. I just thought of that. Maybe some catnip or something.
Yeah, I got some fresh catnip in the house if you want to take some.
Yeah.
I grew it around here like weed.
Okay. Yeah.
It's as strong as weed too. It's got buds on it and shit. Wait till I show it to you. I haven't showed you
So
my
she
fresh
just
catnip,
eats it or
have I?
something?
Huh?
I've never experienced. So do I just eat it or what?
Yeah, you can
No,
eat it
does
too.
she eat it?
I smoked that shit when I was a kid, and it gave me the worst headache, man. Holy shit, it was terrible.
Huh.
But it was still green and wet, and I was putting it in a bong, and I was burning the hell out of it trying to smoke it. It's amazing sometimes that I'm alive. Some of the dumb shit I've done that people told me, "Oh, this will get you high," or "This is a
I think
good
we've
idea."
all done some pretty dumb shit
Smoking
as
the
teenagers.
banana peels.
Like Duster.
Yeah, the
Duster's
duster was
horrible.
really dumb.
I
This-
would. It wasn't fun though.
No, it's
Some
not
of those
fun at
things
all.
were fun, but Duster was not fun.
This
I
cute
don't wanna
hippie
do that
girl
shit
named
anyway.
Missy got me to smoke some formaldehyde one time,
Oh
embalming
my
fluid.
god.
Holy shit! I didn't know what it was. She just
I would
like
not do that.
she worked as a waitress at the restaurant
I
at the
would-
Big Boy I worked
yeah.
at downtown, and she was like, "Oh, how about we go smoke a joint after work?" I'm like, "Okay." So we went over to where the state hospital is, where everyone's all posh and trendy now.
Isn't
Back
that like
then it was shut
Sherm?
down, and oh yeah, that's what it is, Sherm. Yeah. Back then the state
I've
hospital was
never-
closed down and scary, and if you
Yeah.
drove back in there, it wasn't for any good reason. So we went back there and parked in the area and turned off the lights, and we were smoking. She busted out that joint. She's like, "Hold on!" And she had a little bottle. She dipped it in, the tip in it, and then just like flipped it upside down and put it up in the heater vent and turned the heat on, Ooh, and had it blowing out on it to dry it out a little bit. And then she lit that fucker, and it tasted kind of weird for a second, and then it stopped tasting weird, and I was like, all right, thank God. But then all of a sudden, I couldn't control my fucking muscles right. I was fucked up. She wasn't nearly as high as I was. I think she was used to it or something. She had done it before. But it hit me like a ton of bricks. I burned a hole in her car seat, and she never hung out with me again. That's the end of the story.
That would suck.
I dropped a cigarette. Like, I lit a cigarette right after the joint, you know, like you do, and then I was
Yeah.
smoking the cigarette, but I just didn't have quite control of myself, and I dropped the hots or something and burned her seat. I don't even know how I burned her seat, but she was pissed. It's like, you got me high on a weird chemical. The fuck do you want? I burned a little hole in your seat. Lucky I didn't strip my clothes and run off in the woods naked, whatever the hell that
Yeah.
shit was.
That doesn't sound like the type of drug to ingest formaldehyde.
She took me back to work where my car was, and I had to sit
Sherman.
in my car and just like chill for like 2 or 3 hours before I felt safe to drive
Yeah.
home. It was terrible. Sherm. There's even weirder drugs out there now, like all them bath salts and shit. A
Yeah.
lot of that shit you can just order online. They come right to your front door.
designer chemicals too.
Mm-hmm. Just strange, strange things. I would not advise using them. I do have a couple of hits of acid hidden deep, deep in the recesses of my butthole that I might pull out one of these days and eat one of. But you have to make sure it's real
They're
and
probably
shit.
seeping into you already.
Maybe that wasn't the best place to hide it.
That probably would make you trip. If you
That
didn't
would.
have any protection over it.
The Aztecs used to fucking put wine up their butts.
Huh.
I think it was the Aztecs or the Mayans
Is that like
or
something
something.
sacred?
Oh, hell yeah. They would get all drunk, and then they would take like a wine enema so they could take it to the next level. Because then they wouldn't puke, and you would absorb more booze, and you could get even more wasted. And then they
So
would
they
probably
just go
cut a bunch of people's hearts
crazy,
out or
yeah.
something. They were
Just go
fucking crazy.
insane.
They were crazy. People are like, oh, no, the world is going to end. The Mayans predicted it. It's like, no, they used to cut people's hearts out. They didn't know
Yeah.
shit. Like, they might have come up with a clever calendar, but that doesn't mean they knew when the world was going to end.
And maybe doing drugs, possibly, if there were any that they didn't know were drugs. That would definitely
Oh, they definitely did
some
mushrooms
lore.
and shit back
Yeah.
then. There's no doubt about it. We definitely come from some mushroom-loving people.
Yeah.
Look at that, a little fruit fly which
It's,
just landed on you. That was bizarre. Out
Yeah.
of nowhere, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we need live feed.
It's like I'm a mushroom.
A fruit
Haven't-
fly came to you like you were a mushroom and tripped on you. Tripped
what
balls.
was people said, or I heard somewhere on a podcast that sometimes they'd take insane amounts of mushrooms and then just like kill someone like altogether.
Yeah,
Like just go insane and kill someone, and it's just normal.
that
Let's
is
do that.
fucked up.
But now it's cool that it's kind of the opposite side of that. It seems like
Oh yeah, people take
Where-
mushrooms with good intent.
where we
now.
know a little bit more about it, and now we can. It's even used in like therapy, and certain drugs are even used in hospitals,
Hell yeah.
like ketamine.
They say, oh yeah,
I've never
ketamine
done-
is super good for depression and shit. You know another one that's super good if used in a clinical setting where you can't abuse it, because abuse is very, very prevalent with some of them.
Yeah.
But MDMA.
Hmm.
That's another
Makes
reason we need to
sense.
have old Zerilli on here, is because he works in addiction treatment. I think it'd be a fun.
I
I
thought
think
you
we
were
could
gonna-
make a lot of jokes, because talking about crackheads is funny as shit. Like I
Mhm.
know he works with some people that he could tell us some stories, because in prison the crackheads are always the ones where it's like, oh my god, this guy has the most classic stories.
Yeah.
I knew a crackhead named Schuler in prison, and he used to tell me the funniest crack stories. He was a plumber, and he would smoke crack at work all the time because he worked for himself, basically. He said he had never put in a water heater without smoking crack off its pilot light. That was like one of his
Right.
things he'd always say. He
Mm.
said when he'd put in the water heater, he would lay down there with his face in it, and he'd put the crack pipe inside there, and he would smoke crack off the pilot lights all the time. That was what I don't
So
know
the people
why.
just weren't home or something?
Yeah, people weren't home or they weren't down there watching them, so you just smoke crack in their basements all the time.
Oh, jeez.
He's like, I could drive around and show you thousands of houses in Detroit that I've smoked crack in the basement of, and the people didn't even know. Like, he was proud as fuck of his crackhead accomplishments.
Hmm.
He really was. Just like, he would tell you of shit that just was bizarre, but he was
Seems
so
like that's
proud
part
of it.
almost of that.
Oh, it is.
thing.
You have to be proud of how dirty you are almost when you're doing shit like that.
Well,
Like,
maybe that's a result of it, or is it before or after? You think?
I don't know the
Maybe it's
progression with
probably
this
both.
guy.
I
I
don't
think it
know,
was
yeah.
a little bit of both. I think they both started at the same time, because he started off being like a drunk and switched to being a crackhead. He said he spent like 20 years as an active crackhead, but he was a busy one because he always worked and had money. So he was like proud of the fact that he smoked more crack than most people, which was crazy.
Yeah, it does seem like part of it though.
But his
That's
job
funny.
was also to scam, because he worked as a plumber, but he wanted to make it as easy as possible and make as much money as possible. So he had like tied into some commercial accounts for like McDonald's and shit. And he would go and fucking take the valves, you know, the brass valves on top of urinals.
Mhm.
He would take those off the 3 or 4 urinals in McDonald's bathroom and like hide them and take them and steal them.
Oh yeah, you told me this.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
and then
why.
the fucking employees would go and find the bathroom fucking flooded with the fucking handles all off the toilets, and they would call the manager and they'd say, "Oh, call Kevin. He's the one on speed dial." So they would call Kevin, who would be sitting out in his van in the parking lot smoking crack, and they'd call him up and he'd be like, "Oh, here I come, doop-de-doo," and he'd fucking wait a little while so they
And
didn't
do it
know he
in
was out in the
like-
parking lot, and he'd come in, assess the problem, tell him he could find the valves for $200 a piece. He'd have to drive to the thing. He'd go out in his van, smoke more crack, celebrating his win, come back in with the valves, put the shit together, collect his fucking $2,000, and smoke crack
Fixing
again
like
for the
20
whole.
minutes too because you just took it all apart.
Yeah, he knows exactly how to put it back
Exactly
together, and
what's-
he's just putting the same ones back on. And he said he had like a couple McDonald's, a couple Burger Kings, and Arby's. You know, in Detroit, the shit's crowded too, and they just think a crackhead stole it for scrap or whatever.
Yeah, but that's
But it's
basically
the
what
crackhead
it
that's
was.
jamming them
Yeah.
because he's their plumber.
So
and-
they're half right on it. The crackhead did.
It is a
basically
crackhead. They
steal
just
their
got the
shit.
wrong. They think it's a poor crackhead, and it's the rich one.
He stole from them and then got them to pay.
The worst one, though, this is the worst one he used to
Is that-
tell me. He said that he got onto this program where the DHS would pay for hot water heaters for poor
Uh-huh.
people. So he would go to people's houses and be like, hey, these people will pay for a free water heater for you if you sign this paperwork. So he'd get people to sign the paperwork because he knew they were low income, because he'd go to low income neighborhoods. So they'd sign up for the voucher, and he'd say, okay, and he'd get the voucher approved, and he'd come back. And he would fake, and he would carry a fucking box on a dolly down into their fucking wherever their hot water heater was. Then he would pretend like he changed out the hot water heater, and then he'd roll the box back out of the house and have them sign the voucher and shit. And then he would get fucking paid for not only the price of a hot water heater, but also for the installation.
So he'd just bring a box.
But he'd just bring a box, and then he'd lay in their basement, smoke crack off the pilot light of their working hot water heater, and then because he knew that welfare would pay for it, you know, he would get them to sign the paperwork. And, you know, I mean, I'm sure there was incidences, and he told me about them. I can think of a couple where, like, the people wanted to watch him do the work, so he had to actually go buy a hot water heater and, like, go through the motions. But he was still making money on those ones, you know what I mean? He just wasn't making all of the money for doing nothing.
Yeah.
But he had worked out a bunch of different jobs that he could do for nothing and get paid all the money, which was fucking crazy.
Jeez. It's a professional plumber.
Professional crackhead. But
Yeah,
you know what's really
professional
fucking
crackhead, yeah.
crazy? Out of all the fucking people I met in my bit that got out before me, a bunch of them were like, oh, dude, I'll send you some money, or oh, dude, I'll write you a letter, or something like that. No one ever did. But that motherfucking crackhead Kevin sent me $20 twice. He never wrote me much of a letter. He wrote me half of a note on a sticky note.
That's pretty cool.
Yep, the first thing I got from him was the envelope was a reused envelope. It had the clear part on it, you know, where you get like a bill and it has like a clear plastic part where you can see your name through there. He had taken an old bill envelope and like scribbled on that part with black ink pen, and above it wrote my name and address above where the clear part was. Then he scribbled out the business return name and just wrote K. Schuler and didn't even write his address. And he put a $20 money order in there, and he wrote me a letter on a yellow Post-it and put in there. It was like almost to emphasize that he was still a crackhead.
Yeah.
And that's basically what the note said, that he was living his dream.
That's awesome.
And it's like, well, get it
Got a
on.
really excited note.
Get it on. Get it on, Kevin, you fucking crazy crackhead motherfucker. But yeah, he was a decent guy. I think he sent me some money because I always kind of kept him safe in a way, because he was so abrasive and he was such a dick. Like, a lot of people just wanted to fuck him up, but I kept him pretty safe.
That's a cool thing to do from both sides. That's
Yeah.
like a callback from the start.
He didn't mean to be abrasive.
You were talking
either.
about karma, I think.
We were, and how helping people helps you a bunch. Like, helping Kevin helped me a bunch, because I feel like I could almost take some of his crackhead stories and tell people on stage, because that shit is hilarious. Like,
Yeah.
some of the shit that he got in a fight with his fucking brother and never spoke to him again because his brother accidentally found a dried up onion on the floor of his van and smoked it through his like best crack pipe and pissed him off and like ruined his crack pipe and made it
So
taste
he
like
thought
onion.
it was crack or something?
Yeah, he thought the little dried up white piece of onion was a piece of crack. Because Kevin was like, when you smoke crack, like, I don't know this firsthand, but he says when you smoke crack, as soon as you're done smoking crack, even if you have more crack, you always go to searching the floor because you think you might have dropped a piece while you were like preparing it. Like, he said it's a constant thought when you're a crackhead.
It's just probably so precious.
Yeah, but so you always think you've
fucked
lost
up,
a piece.
kinda.
So his brother like was looking for a piece of crack and he found an onion and like fucked the pipe up and they got in a fist fight over it, and he said he's never talked to his brother since.
That's fucked up, but hilarious.
It's hilariously
Over a
fucked up.
fucking
Like, you
onion.
could definitely write a crackhead movie about Kevin, and you would have to just like play it on the bright side, or else it'd be too depressing to watch.
One onion. That's some butterfly effect.
Yep, it is. One onion ruined a family. And then he would talk about how he fucking he smoked up a business. He said he owned a bar. He said he owned a bunch of other shit, like a boat and a house and 2 marriages. Like, he was just like would list off the shit that he smoked up with pride and like giggle about it. And he wasn't still high on crack. But he was a weird guy. Like, he was getting out of prison and everyone was begging him for his TV. But you're not supposed to give away your TV. Like, technically, you could almost get in trouble for it, so there was no way he was doing it. And so when he left, just to be a dick to everyone that was like, come on, motherfucker, they're not going to say nothing if you just give it to me. Like, they don't either. They just let you go home. They give you, I could write you a ticket. Yeah. And then they let you go home anyhow. But anyhow, instead of giving his TV away, he drug that bitch to control center by its cord, banging and clanging along the way. And I had to walk with him so people wouldn't fuck him up. Like, I had to walk.
You drug it by the wire, like
the cord, the plug-in. And it just, like, clanged and banged.
Fun.
It was like a little 12-inch black and white box TV. And it just, like, pop, pop, pop. And, like, it was tough enough the screen didn't bust or anything, especially the way it worked out. But he just wanted everyone to see that they weren't getting it, and he was going to fuck it up because he didn't want it. Like, he wasn't taking it home because he wanted it. Like, that was his point. And I had to walk with him to control center to make sure I knew someone wanted to punch him for it. So I was like, I'll just walk with him so no one comes and clocks him on his way out. Because so many people were mad. Because he was telling them the night before. We lived in, like, weird barrack, like, pole barn situation, and he was telling that to people. I'm not giving you my fucking TV. I'll drag it out by the goddamn cord before I give it to you. Fuck you guys. Like, he hated everyone in a way, but not really. He just, like, people in prison fuck with you constantly, especially if you're someone like him, because he had the physique of a crackhead. You know, he had the everything of a crackhead.
Seems like from listening to these stories, the line of a crackhead goes a little bit farther than the normal person.
Oh, yeah.
The line that's a little overdone.
They would make great stand-up comedians if they could ever make it to the gig on time, but they would be too high on crack and not ready and don't want to do it. But they're definitely willing to push the envelope with every fucking aspect of their life.
That's funny as fuck. So.
And it definitely stands out. All right, well, I've had my phone blowing up talking about crackheads. There's like 4 of them trying to call me, I think. So we should wrap this episode up. This has been Man Sharpens Man, Charlie. Sign out. Say something
Peace,
fancy.
Pot, Microdot, and listen to both of our podcasts.
Yeah, listen to The Charlie Show a lot.
And the Man Sharpens Man.
Yeah. Later, people.